Hello and a big welcome back to all my subscribers. And if you're not a subscriber, why not? Today I want to go through some more of my advent of code where I'm using RISC-V processor assembly language to try and complete the puzzles in the advent of code daily thing. If you're not aware, an advent is like an advent calendar is a countdown typically to Christmas, and you open a window every day and you take out a chocolate. Well, the advent of code, they give you a puzzle to solve every day as you approach Christmas. In fact, they give you two. They give you one and then a supplementary issue for that particular problem. I've been working on this for 15 days and I've almost managed to complete part 2 of the first day. So, I think if I did this in Python, it would probably have taken me about 30 minutes to do everything. But I'll show you where I'm at the moment, and I'll show you the puzzle. So basically what you get is, in the initial one, you just take the first digit and the last digit, so here it would be 12. But in the second part, they want you to take the spelled words for the letter. So here you got 2, 1, and 9, and they want you to pick out 29. Here they've got 8, 2, and 3, and they want 83. Anyway, you see what it is they want. Now, I modified my original thing, and I suspect that was part of the problem. But let me just show you the additions. It sets up the stack and all of that. It opens the file, no change there. It reads the line in, no change there. The only difference is I've added this section, which I was originally going to use regular expressions like you do in C, but it was a bit too complicated and there was a lot of memory allocation that would have to happen, and so I decided to skip it and just create my own function. I called it regex for no good reason really, but the difference here is what I'm doing is, if I go back up here, I actually allocate, or malloc, a new string, a temporary string for it to use. And then what it does is it uses this temporary string. It takes the original string and rewrites the original string, replacing spelled out numbers like O-N-E, replace it with the number 1 in ASCII, to build up a string, and then I just pass that new string to the previous code that I already had that worked, that would calculate based on digits only. So effectively it still calculates based on digits only, it's just that I replace all of the spelled out words with their integer equivalent. So it's just creating or loading the character into A6 for the string. So if it's and then it checks. So if it's a O, well, that might be possibly the start of the word 1. So it jumps if it's equal. And then I do the same thing for N, because it might be so check for 1, look for an E to check for 8, look for a 9 and check for 9. Now the word 4 and 5 both begin with F, which is fine, so I check for both 4 or 5. My comments aren't very good. But anyway, so it checks for 4 or 5, 6 or 7, And then if it's anything, if it's a number, if it's between 0 and 9 or 1 and 9, it just replaces it in the new string. It just sticks it into the new string. So there's nothing really super clever about this. So if we just look at 1, for example, it's already got O. So it moves it to the next address, loads that into a temporary register, checks to see if this is N, and then loads the position back in case it isn't, because if it isn't an N and it's just an O X or something, then it just needs to copy the character. So, but it needs to copy the previous character, not this character. So that's the point of that. It loads the previous position and then jumps to just copy character if it's not an N. Then it loads the E, does the same again. If it's ONB, then it's not the word 1, and so it would just put it back and let it start to copy the characters again. But if it has determined that it is ONE, then it is the number 1, and so it increments the counters and calculates the new address, stores it into the temporary string, and then increments the loop counter, this time by 3. Now, the reasoning here is that the new position in the old string needs to be at the end of the E. So you basically need to, when you return, skip past N and E, and so you've moved on to the next word or character. So that's pretty much it, and this basically does the same thing for all of these checks. I mean, the slight difference here is that if it gets to it checks for a W, and if it's not a W, well, okay, it's not the word 2, but it might be the word 3. So it jumps down to 3 to see if it's a H or not. And then it just basically does the same thing again with the word 3. And then it does the same for 4 and 5 and 6 and 7. And then copy character is just copying the character into the new temporary string. And then if it gets to the end of the line, it jumps to a new line process, which basically resets the temp string, resets the loop counters, and then moves on. Down here, this is the original stuff, show integers. This, it no longer uses the original string. It uses this new temporary string that I created. I've spent a lot of... So if I run this, it will fall over in a big smoking heap. Weirdly, it will run up to 254 lines, and then it fails. So I've got to figure out, why does it fail at 254 lines? Now, this is the first part of the data file that I have, and I can cut this in half or down to 270, and it'll process everything, no problem. But it seems to fall over when it gets to a larger number. It shouldn't be anything to do with the file, because that all worked before. So it must be something to do with my temporary string and string allocation being filled up. I don't know if I'm actually going to bother to do this, but I need to do it in order to proceed to the next bit of the puzzle, because it wants an answer. So I might write this in Python just to get myself an answer. But, 15 days on this particular puzzle is a bit much, and I'm kind of sick of it and want to move on. It's not like this is for work. I'm not making a living out of this, so if it doesn't work, that's fine. I have been spending a lot of time in GDB, and I've spent a lot of time in Emacs. So, you know, it's quite helpful, you know, to set breakpoints and run through the code and actually see the code while it's happening. But, yeah. Don't know why it fails. Something to do with the line count, but it's something I'll have to fix later. But there you go. So I don't know how much further I'm going to proceed with this, or whether I'm just going to move on to the next puzzle. We'll see how it goes. Again, these aren't tutorials. I'm not trying to teach you how to do RISC-V programming. I'm trying to teach myself how to do it, and using puzzles and, you know, various sort of simple programs to try and work that out. So anyway, if you like this sort of content, please like and subscribe and all of that good stuff. And if you want to support the channel, please have a look at my books on xgipublishing.com. And if you like the books, buy one and have a read. All right, that's it for me today. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.